Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we're going to take the basic thing that we just built in the previous video. We're going to actually turn it into a real video game. So right now all we have is a player that moves around our screen based on button presses. That's cool, but there's no danger here. There's nothing to make us sweat and scream and yell and throw our controllers at the TV. There's also no goal here either. So to make this an actual video game, we need those two things. We need some kind of failure state and we need some kind of win state. And so the way this game is going to work is we're going to create a new thing called an enemy, or, you know, barrier or boundary, whatever we want to call it. We'll call it enemy. And it's going to use this red square, and that red square, we're going to kind of use it to draw a maze that our player has to navigate. And then we're going to build a green square called a goal. And that goal is going to be at the end of the maze. And when we hit that green square, we're going to move the player to the next level. So I'm going to build 3 levels. You can build as many as you'd like, but I'm going to build 3 just so we get the idea of the concept. Okay, so first, what do we want to do first? Let's build our enemy first. So for that, we're going to need a new scene. Oh, by the way, one thing that I forgot to do last video, we created a script, right? But it's saved in our scenes folder. That's not very good organization practices. We created a scripts folder, but we didn't put our script in that folder. So let's go ahead and drag that down into our scripts folder so that everything is nice and organized. Okay, I noticed that after recording the last video and I was like, it gave me, my eyes started twitching. So yeah, let's make sure we organize our projects a little bit. Okay, so let's create a new scene and we will call this, we need a root node. This root node is going to be something that we haven't used before, but it's going to be a special kind of node called an area 2D. So what this means is, let's find it first. Okay, there we go. So an area 2D is a region of 2D space that detects other collision objects entering or exiting it. What that means is basically it's like a zone that you put down on the ground, and when you walk into that zone, something happens, right? So it could be, you know, think about it like a security camera in a video game. When you walk into the camera's zone and it sees you, and then all the enemies start shooting at you, right? That's kind of how an area works. We're going to use the area to detect if our player is passed into the area, and it's going to reset the level so that we have to start from the beginning. So if we're almost done with the maze, then we clip the wall, it's going to put us back at the start. Okay, so that's how we're going to use this area 2D. So that's going to be the root node of this new scene, and we're going to call it enemy. Okay, so our enemy needs a couple things. Well, it needs a sprite 2D, and it needs a collider. We've already done this a couple of times, so I'm going to zoom through doing this. Now notice that if we have some recent objects or recent nodes that we found, we can just find them in this recent menu. We don't have to search for them every time. So sprite 2D, my enemy is going to be this red piece of art here. I can probably make it a little smaller, but I'm going to leave that size alone. You'll see why in just a minute. Let's add my collider. So my collision shape. Let's do a new rectangle shape and make it the size of my sprite. Now for this one, I want to make sure that the collider is pretty much exactly on the shape, because we're going to be resizing this shape in the level multiple times. We want to make sure the collider exactly matches up. Okay, perfect. Now the last thing we need is we need a script. Okay, so just like with the player, we need a sprite, a collider, and a script. This script is going to be very, very basic. It's going to have 3 total lines of code, including the import statement. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our script here. So make sure your enemy node is selected and click add script. Now here, instead of putting it right into my scene folder, I'm going to click this folder, click scripts, and put it right in there so my eyeball doesn't get twitchy, and click create. Okay, so we have extends area 2D. Fine, we're going to leave that alone. What we need here is we need a function that will trigger whenever the enemy or whenever the player passes into the collider of this enemy. Okay, now we can go find that function, but Godot makes it super easy for us to find that function and add it to our script. With the enemy selected, if we come over here to our inspector, there's a tab called Node. If we click on Node, we don't see anything. Let's click enemy again. Okay. Sometimes this node menu does that. It won't show anything, and you have to click on the node again. So now we have this menu of all these things. These are called signals. Signal is a special event that will be triggered based on a very conditional condition. That was a very confusing way to say that. Let me give you an example. So, for example, the area 2D signals that are available here, there are a couple things. Area entered, area exited, area shape exited, body entered, body exited, body shape entered, body shape exited. What this is saying is, for example, if we have this body entered, this is looking to see if any body object has entered into this area. Now our player is a character body 2D. It's a body object. So if we choose body entered, then if our character body enters into that area, it'll trigger this function and then something will happen. So let's choose this one. I'm going to double click on it and it will give me this panel or this menu, this window, that's the word, to connect a signal to a method. Now, we're just going to connect it to the enemy node because that's all we're going to detect, basically. We're going to attach it to the enemy, and then anytime anything enters into the enemy's area, we want this to happen. Okay, so we're going to click connect. And it's going to write a brand new function in my enemy script. Okay, so all we need to do is tell the game what to do when a body enters this enemy. So what we want it to do is we want it to reload the scene. So let's explain, or let me explain how this works. So as I was saying a couple videos ago, when we made our first project, I was trying to use this very heavy-handed metaphor to explain that Godot works like a tree, right? There's a trunk, there are branches, those branches have little other branches coming off of them, so on and so forth. That metaphor is actually a little bit more cogent than you may originally have thought, because Godot actually thinks of itself as a tree, right? We have a root node, we have a trunk of the tree, which is the scene itself, and we have branches coming off. So in order to get the actual scene, or all of the things inside of a scene, Godot has a function called getTree. GetTree. Now, getTree is basically saying, get this menu here, okay? And what we want to do is call a function inside getTree called reload current scene. So that's going to take whatever scene is inside this tree and reload it. So it'll reload this scene from the beginning. And that's our script. So basically what we're saying is whenever the player or any body object enters into this area 2D, we're going to get the scene or get the tree over here, and we're going to reload the current scene that we're running. Okay. So let's save our enemy object. So scene, save scene. We'll put it into our scenes folder. Let's go to our 2D view and let's go to level 1. And let's put an enemy into the game. Now we want our enemy to be a child of the level 1 root node. And so let's grab our enemy scene right here from our scenes folder and plop it right in. Okay. So now we've got this big giant enemy and a small little player. Let's play the game. So I can move my player around in the game, but as soon as I pass into the area that makes up this enemy, the level should reset. And it did. It's kind of subtle because I kind of ended up in the same place that I was. So let's go down here. Let's enter from here and it should reset the game. And it did. Okay, so our game is actually working. We have a failure state, or at least a state at which we need to reset the game. But I'm pretty sure our enemy doesn't, we don't want a blocky enemy just sitting here in the middle of the level. So let's modify this a bit. So with our enemy selected, we can actually use our scale tool here to change the size of this enemy object. Let's make it nice and skinny, and let's scale it up so it is long enough that it reaches the entire top and bottom. I'm going to use my grab tool here, or I'm going to hit the Q key so I can select it and move it over here. So it kind of creates a barrier on this end. And let's go ahead and do the same thing. So let's duplicate this. So we have 2 enemies now, and let's drag enemy 2 over to this side. And let's do the same thing again. Let's duplicate, drag enemy 3, and let's rotate it so it can go across the top. So I can use my rotate key, or my rotate thing, E. And now when I click and drag, I'm rotating it. One tip is if you hold control, you can snap your rotation so that it goes to even values. And let's move it. So back to Q, move it up here. Now I need to scale it again. So I can use the S key for scaling, and let's scale it back to Q to move it. Okay. Control D to duplicate, move this down here. So now we have a game, but if we touch the edge, it resets. That's probably as complicated as we want level 1 to be, because we want to teach our player how to play the game. So we'll leave that there. Pretty decent configuration for level 1. But I'm noticing something here. Notice that my tree is starting to get very complicated. I want to organize this a little bit. So what I can do is I can create a new node 2D, and I'm going to call this enemies. And I'm going to select all of these enemies, hold shift and click, and drag them all down into this enemies. So now they're all children of this enemies node. And I can collapse that so I can hide them, so I don't have to see them. It's a little trick that you can use. Anyway, all right, so enemies are working. Now we need to get our end goal working. So let's save all of our scenes, and let's create a new one. And let's think about what we want to be our root node. Well, area worked pretty good for enemies. I don't see why it wouldn't work for our end goal. So let's do that. Let's choose area 2D. And let's add a sprite 2D. I need to click inspector. Let's put our green piece of art there. It's way too big. Let's actually shrink this down here, because there's no reason it needs to be that big. So let's go to transform. Let's make it 0.03. That's a better size. Let's add a collision shape 2D. Let's set its collider to be a rectangle. And you know what? Actually, for this one, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm not going to have it cover the whole shape. I want, whenever our player is entering into this area, I want there to be a bit of a buffer before it registers that there's a collision there, it'll just feel a little bit nicer. Okay. All right. I don't know why I need this to be perfect, but it is. All right. So, let's rename this to goal. Goal. And let's save this scene. Okay, so now we have goal. Perfect. Okay, so now we need a script. So same thing. Let's put it into our scripts folder. Let's keep it empty. We don't need anything else in the script. Okay, so we're going to need a signal, and actually we're going to need the same signal. So let's go to node, and again, click on, there we go. Let's do body entered as our signal and connect. Okay, so now with this, we don't want to reset the game. We want to go to the next level. So how do we do that? Well, first we need to know what the next level is. And for that, we're probably going to want to use a variable, because this goal is going to be the same goal object that's in every single level. But in every level, the level that it needs to load is a different level. So we're going to need a variable, but we're going to need to be able to change that variable depending on what level we're in. Oh, this is getting confusing. Well, luckily, Godot gives us that ability. We can create variables called export variables. Export variables are variables that we can change in the inspector here, so that individual instantiations or individual copies of this, we can change the values here, which will then change the values inside the script just for that specific one. Okay, so Godot is really smart. It gives us this ability. So let's create a new variable. But before we type var, let's type the @ and then export. Okay, and we're going to call this next level. And it's going to be of type scene. Why did that not work? Unexpected identifier in class body. Oh, you know what? That's why. That didn't work. Oh, I forgot the keyword var. That is like a first day programmer mistake that I just made live in a recording. But I'm going to keep it in, because mistakes are made even by people who've been doing this for a really, really long time. So I'm going to keep it. Okay, perfect. Nope, not scene multiplayer. I think it's scene tree, I believe. We'll try it. Could only be built in, a resource, a node, or an enum. So we can't do this as a scene. Let's do it as a string. Let's say level _2. Okay. So we're going to have to do some things to make this work, but bear with me. Okay. So we have an export variable now that says next level is level 2. Alrighty. So let's talk about how to move from one scene to the next. So we're going to do the same thing. Get tree, load, or no, change scene to file. Okay, change scene to file. What that's doing is it's going to say basically load a new scene. And so the new scene I want to load is one of these that we have here. Now notice that the file naming, the naming convention here, res:// scenes:/ /level1 or level underscore one .tscn. I don't want to type all of that out every time I want to change which level loads. So I'm just going to change this part in the middle. So let's do this. Res : / scenes / Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify. So this is a string. So strings are a data type in programming. And strings are basically just like a collection, just like a word or a paragraph or just a bunch of alphanumeric characters together. Okay. And strings can be modified just by adding them together. So this is the first part of the string. The next part of the string I want to add is next underscore level, our variable. Then we need to add that .tscn. So essentially what this is saying now is we want to load res : / scenes / level 2 plus or .tscn, right? If we were to change this to level 3, then it would be level 3. If we were to change this to level 4, well, 5, so on and so forth. Okay. So that's essentially how that's working. Now, the problem is we don't have a level 2 yet, but this is functionally how it's going to work. All right, before we can test this, we actually do need a level 2. So let's do that real quick. Let's build a new scene, 2D scene. We'll call it level 2. We'll save it. And click save. Okay. And I'm just going to put an enemy right there in the middle so we know that's level 2. Okay, so let's save that scene. So let's talk through what is going to happen. Oh, I think, we need to add a goal, our end goal here. So let's add an end goal here. We'll go to goal. Oh, we need to add it as a child of the level 1. There we go. And let's move it over to here. And just looking at it, that collider may need to change. Anyway, let's play and let's see what's going to happen. So I'm going to save all my scenes. Let's play it again. Okay, so now if I bump into the wall, it resets the game and I have to start over. But if I bump into this green, do you see what happened? It took me to level 2. We are now in level 2. Okay. One thing that happened though, as I crossed over into this green, I actually went under it. I want to go over it. So let's talk about how Godot organizes its hierarchy here. Basically, Godot will render all of these objects in the order that it is presented, meaning the first thing in the order is going to be rendered on the very bottom. Then this will be on top, then up and up and up and so forth. So if we want the goal to be underneath the player, we just need to drag it up above the player in this hierarchy. Okay. So now that we have a functioning system, let's save this. Let's go to level 2 and let's build this out. So we have our enemy. We need to scale. S. Duplicate. Rotate was what again? E. And then control. Move. Duplicate. Move. Let's bring in a player. Let's put the player right here. Okay. And let's put the enemy, or no, let's put a goal right up here. And let's put some maze stuff in here. So I'm going to bring in a new enemy. And this enemy will take up some more of this space. Let's make it a little bit, oh. Sure, sounds good. Actually, let's scale it. Oh, this is very sensitive. There we go. Okay. Perfect. And you know what? Level 2 is just going to be a simple level as well, just to give us the idea that we're going to go around in, but I'm going to scale up my end goal here as well. Okay, so level 2. Now notice that over here on our goal, next level is going to be level 3. So we need a level 3. Let's make a new level. 2D scene, level 3. 3. And this one I'm going to leave blank so that we can, just so we know we're moving into level 3. Actually, we need to save this. So save the scene, level 3, save. So now when we play the game, we start at level 1. You can move over and touch level 2 or go to level 2. Now we go to level 3. Beautiful. And look, adding levels is basically that quick. We can now add enemies to level 3, make kind of a maze configuration, make it a little bit more difficult to get through, you know, all that kind of stuff. But again, yeah, I mean, this is really that's the workflow for this game. You can make as many levels as you want at this point. I'm going to organize this a little bit using some of those good practices we've learned. Create a new node 2D, rename this, call it enemies, and put all of my enemies in here. Okay, perfect. So now, I mean, we can literally just do the same thing here. We can even copy this enemies node here, paste it in here. So now we have all these enemies and we can just kind of, oh, I just scaled everything. And now we can kind of change things as we want. Like maybe we want this to be kind of a skinny level, right? Let's bring in our player and put it up here. And let's change the size of the player so it's much smaller. Make it half the size. We'll bring in a goal and put that right there. And let's make it half its size. And let's change the speed of the player. Ooh, you know, we can't really individually change the speed because we didn't create speed as an export variable. Let's change that. Let's go to our script, go to our player script, and up here where we have speed, let's set it to export. Now, what we can do is when we go to level 3, we can change the speed of this player individually, make it a little faster. So this level is a little bit more difficult. And in this goal, let's go back to level 1 when we finish. That way we have a loop. We can loop through all 3 of our levels. Let's play it. So level 1, level 2, level 3. Oh, and it's faster, so it's harder. Ah, right? So we're just ramping up the difficulty as we go. That's it. Again, you can make as many levels as you want now. You can make 50 levels if you want, with varying sizes of the player, different speeds, more complicated mazes. It's really completely up to you at this point how awesome you want to make this game. I'm kind of jealous that you now get to be creative and make something fun and cool and unique. I mean, I guess I could go do that too. Yeah, I'm gonna go do that right now. You guys enjoy building this game. I'm gonna go build the rest of it myself. And I'll see you in the next project.